It's but Mikey, today we're talking about loose energy itself. Like loose energy is in a concept is like energy harvested from humans, like frenzied energy or fear or all the type of negative emotions that's harvested, and demons or lower astral beings actually feed on it. Like this loophole actually, the rabbit hole actually gets very like that makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
Since the beginning of human history, humans have been enslaved by an unseen force called the Archons. These beings have an insatiable taste for the death and suffering of any living creature, mainly humans. When humans suffer, life force energy called Loosh is spewed from the body, making the human a tastier meal for these transdimensional beings.
Like in a nutshell, it's like lower astral beings. I don't know about Archon, like I don't know what the fuck that is, but in essence, it's like demons. Like you can actually see demons.
According to Robert Monroe, Loosh is created by constantly being fearful, living purely materialistic, low vibrational intentions and thoughts, indefinite wars, poverty, natural disasters, diseases, and all situations where people suffer.
That's why the elites actually promote war and any other like type of like always want to keep you in a state of fear itself and keep you like natural resources are depleting. You have to fight, you have to kill people. You have to do all this fucking fuck shit in fucking war itself. You have to like be and they always don't want you to be in a state of like complete peace and paradise on earth. Like they want constant state of war. So in order to keep you people in fearful energy, so this kind of fearful energy is harvested by demons. They had to, engage and keep you informed of some kind of warfare. That's why even if you have some kind of a peaceful civilization, like with the United Nations and shit, but war has never stopped. Like they want us to keep wars going so they can harvest fearful energy. That is the reason why wars actually never stop, because the negative emotions and energy that's generated by war itself is like a food to the slow astral beings.
And die to consume their Loosh energy. The greater the suffering the living being goes through, the more Loosh energy is produced. Monroe claims he astral projected over 1,000 times and has been doing that for more than a decade. In one of his journeys to another dimension, he discovered something sinister. In the last few months of Monroe's life, he came up with a theory that planet Earth is a big energy Loosh farm.
Yep.
He said he used matrix glitches in our planet and reality to have interactions with light beings, explore other worlds and dimensions.
And it can also go both ways. Like if you do moral good deeds and generate a form of love and positive thoughts and like help other people, it can also be like energy for other higher astral beings and spiritual beings like angels and shit. Like it can also go both ways. But if you're always in state of negative emotion, it is like a intangible things becomes a tangible fuel for demons and other spiritual beings.
Reportedly, a light being told Monroe that when humans die, their energy is released and harvested by these transdimensional beings, who then use it to extend their own lifespans.
Yep.
The claim is that the
That's how they actually move in the metaphysical plane. That's the food. That's a fuel they actually use.
universe is a garden created by these beings as their food source. According to Monroe, animals were intentionally equipped with fangs, claws, and speed to prolong the suffering of the predator-prey conflict. Animals are also positioned to feed off the plants and off of each other, effectively generating more Loosh. In other words, the more Loosh that is released from our bodies, the greater the meal for our creators.
Was an American radio broadcasting executive.
Wait.
Robert Monroe was an American radio broadcasting executive who was known for his work in the field of altered states of consciousness. He founded the Monroe Institute for the Exploration of Human Consciousness, patented hemisync binaural beats, and coined the term out-of-body experience. Monroe wrote several books about his astral travels out of body, the beings he met.
And if you actually doubt astral projection, it's actually real. Like the CIA does it all the time.
In the spirit world, and the information they imparted to him. Perhaps the most notable of all occurs in Chapter 12 of his book Far Journeys, where he describes an out-of-body experience with a being who shared a creation story claiming Earth was made as a garden to grow Loosh. This entity claimed that beings reminiscent of the Gnostic archons allegedly require, like, need, value, collect, drink, eat, or use as a drug a substance called loosh. Natural forms of this
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. Like intangible things to us are tangible fuel for you know, the astral beings, even the lower and upper, or like especially the lower astral beings, because they feed on negative emotions, our emotions, and like the negative energy, like all things so idleness, lustful energy, all those things are low vibrational energy, and this energy is directly our fuel for these kinds of beings, and these beings like want you in a constant state or like fear, lustful, all this low vibrational negative energy, like
vital substance valued by these beings was said to originate from a series of vibrational actions in the carbon-oxygen cycle. So, the creator decided to grow his own in a garden experiment. Robert Monroe explains that, first, he created a proper environment for the carbon-oxygen cycle where it would flourish. He created a balance with much care, so that proper radiation and other nourishment would be in continuous supply. He then tried his first crop, which actually did produce loosh, but only in small quantities and of comparatively low grade. It turns out the lifespan of the crops were too short, and the crop units themselves too small, bringing about limits in quality and quantity. Also, the loosh could only be harvested at the moment of death, and not a second before. As the story goes, the creator planted a second crop, which was only marginally better. He changed the environment to another part of the garden, where the density was gaseous rather than liquid, and the higher density chemicals formed a solid base, and thus were still available. He planted numberless units in many varieties in a new form, with great increase in size, some many thousands of times larger and more complex than the simple unicellular first crop. This second crop reseeded itself at regular intervals, and terminated their lifespans automatically. The creator also immobilized this second crop to avoid the uneven distribution of chemicals and radiation prevalent in the first crop. Each was designed to stay principally in its own section of the garden. To this end, each was given firm tendrils which burrowed deep in the more dense chemical matter. Attached to this was a stem or trunk, which helped elevate the upper portion upward for its share of needed radiation. The upper portion, broad, thin, and somewhat fragile, was designed as a transducer of carbon-oxygen compounds to and from the crop unit. As an added thought, brilliant color radiators accompanied by small particle generators were mounted on each unit, usually near the top and symmetrically centered. In other words, the first crop was the creation of unicellular organisms, and the second crop was the creation of trees, flowers, and plants. According to Monroe, the creator was still unsatisfied with the results of the second crop, which produced more quantity but of no greater quality. He did, however, discover a new means of swift harvesting through what sounds like strong winds, hurricanes, or tornadoes. He set up circulating patterns in the gaseous envelope around the crop, principally to aid in the reseeding process. Later, he discovered that the same turbulent effect served as a means of harvesting the loosh. If the turbulence were violent enough, the crop would be blown down, the lifespan terminated, and the loosh would discharge. After his second failure, the creator hovered over his garden, pondering how he would change his third crop. He decided the original carbon-oxygen cycle must be included, mobility must be restored, and size must be added to the units. Thus the creator removed some sample units from the first crop still thriving in the liquid portion of his garden, and modified them to exist in the gaseous area. Then he adapted them to take nourishment from the second crop, to allow them to grow into efficient loosh collectors themselves. Thus it was that the first of the mobiles, the third crop, came into being. The mobiles took nourishment from the second crop, thus ending its lifespan, and produced low-grade loosh. When each huge mobile terminated its own lifespan, additional loosh was produced. The quantity was massive, but the frequency pattern of the loosh residue still left much to be desired. So, the third crop was larger mobile units that feed upon the second crop, or in other words, animals were created to further refine the loosh production of plants. The creator was getting closer and closer to a viable loosh garden, but his new problem was that the monstrous and slow-moving mobiles had a lifespan far out of proportion to their nourishment input. The growth and life termination process was of such length that soon the mobiles would all but decimate the second crop. The entire garden would be out of balance, and there would be no loosh production whatsoever. While hovering over his third crop and pondering his next move, the creator noticed as the second crop plants grew more and more scarce, the energy needs of the third crop animals became acute. Often, two mobiles would seek to ingest the same second crop unit, causing conflict and physical struggle, which, to the creator's happy surprise, created huge amounts of loosh. With this new revelation in mind, the creator tried another experiment. He removed another unit of the first crop from the liquid garden area, redesigned it for the gaseous environment, but with one significant change. The new mobile unit would be somewhat smaller, but would require the ingestion of other mobiles for nourishment. This would solve the problem of overpopulation of mobiles, and at the same time would create good quantities of usable loosh during each conflict struggle, plus a bonus if the new class of mobile terminated the lifespan of the other. In other words, for the fourth crop, the creator made carnivorous animals who, in their struggle to survive, harvested record amounts of loosh. For his fourth crop units, the creator tried a few different types. Some were made to subsist mostly on the second crop units, while others required the energy from ingestion of their fellow third crop units. The completed circuit operated quite satisfactorily. The stationary second crop modification in the liquid environment flourished. Small, highly active, liquid-breathing mobiles took nourishment and ate the second crop modification. Larger and/or other active mobiles consumed for energy the smaller plant eaters. When any mobile grew too large and slow, it became an easy target for the smaller mobiles, who attacked in voracious numbers. The chemical residue from these ingestive actions settled to the bottom of the liquid medium, and so provided new nourishment for the stationaries, completing the circuit. The result was a steady flow of loosh. From the lifespan termination of the stationaries, from the intense conflict among the mobiles to avoid ingestion, and finally from the sudden termination of the lifespans of such mobiles as the inevitable product of such conflicts. The garden was now producing adequate loosh, and self-regenerating as well. Even still, the creator was not finished refining his crops, and had more ingenious ideas in mind. He created thousands of new types in his fourth crop mobiles, with the goal of more struggle, suffering, and conflict. These took the form of mass, elusive speed, deceptive and/or protective coating, and color radiation, wave action, and particle perceptors and detectors, and unique higher density perturbances for gouging, grasping, and rending during conflict. In other words, he created faster, larger, stronger animals with claws, fangs, and antlers to hunt and kill one another. These new additions prolonged the periods of conflict and resulted in increased loosh production. Next, as a side experiment, the creator designed one form of mobile that was weak and ineffective by the standards of the other mobiles in the fourth crop. Yet this experimental mobile had two distinct advantages. The first advantage was its ability to ingest and take energy from both the stationaries and other mobiles. Second, the creator pulled forth a piece of himself with no other source of such substance being known or available to act as an intensive, ultimate trigger to mobility. By infusing this piece of himself into the fourth crop units, the creator added a new motivating force beyond the satisfaction of energy requirements through ingestion. These units would now always seek to satisfy this tiny mote of the creator engendered as it sought reunion with the infinite whole. This piece of himself sounds like consciousness or higher mind, and the special fourth crop units given this gift are humans. After endowing us with humanity, the creator began designing violent harvesting methods to generate extra amounts of loosh. To reap such harvest, the collectors generated storms of turbulence and turmoil in both the gaseous envelope and the more solid chemical formations that were the base of the garden itself. Such upheavals had the effect of terminating lifespans of multitudes of the fourth crop as they were crushed under the rolling base formation or smothered under waves from the agitated liquid area of the garden. In other words, natural disasters like earthquakes, volcanoes, floods, and tsunamis were purposely introduced to periodically aid in loosh harvesting. Increasing
Yeah, we ultimately also tied to, I don't want to get, too conspiratorial about, uh, artificial, harp and all those things, and causing like intentional earthquakes using the technology itself. Like, I truly believe that, bro. A lot of this natural disaster doesn't even seem natural anymore. Like, there's some kind of entities actually like causing these natural disasters
satisfied with his garden, the creator hovered
or organizations.
above, watching his creations, and noticed certain fourth crop units emanating a type of the highest quality purified and distilled loosh. Intensely curious, he investigated the source and found this most desirable loosh was coming from one particular unit. The fourth crop unit was not struggling in conflict over an ingestible remnant of a weaker fourth crop unit, or a tasty frond from a nearby second crop stem, or to avoid termination of life and ingestion by the other.
That's what it sounds like. Constant state of war, constant state of battling for natural resources, constant state of like, claiming this elites claiming the global warming or the asteroids coming to hit Earth, or like natural resources are like, running out, like all this stupid fucking bullshit. Like, they know all this shit are fucking false. And it's like they want to keep humanity, the alien invasion. They want to keep humanity in the constant state of fear itself. So when they're in a constant state of fear energy, like you should never live with fear. Never live, and place a constant state of energy, like this energy becomes like a harvest. That's why there's actually wars. Like, do you think this amount of human technology, human civilization, like, we still want to do actual wars itself? No, the wars are caused intentional to harvest these kinds of energy.
conflicting fourth crop unit. It was in conflict to protect and save from life termination 3 of its own newly generated
Because the elites, all their allegiance, demonic beings. So demonic beings give them status and power, and returnally, like, they have to meet like a sales quota, of amount of energy harvest they actually has to give to these demons, who actually put them in places of power itself. So their sales quota is like generate as much of hateful fear energy as possible, and the best way to actually do it is through wars and through the media, the news itself, causing like state of fear and incitement.
species huddled under a large second crop unit, waiting for the outcome. To translate into normal language, the creator noticed a human parent fighting to protect its 3 young children under a large tree, and it was this intense emotional defense of their loved ones that created a purified and distilled type of Loosh energy. Continuing to observe the fourth crop units in his garden, the creator noticed another unit also producing purified Loosh, but this one was alone and seemingly not in conflict at all. Investigating closer, the creator found that this individual standing alone under the leafy upper portion of a large second crop unit was not hungry, not in conflict, and not acting in defense of its young, but still producing high-quality Loosh energy. The unit was lonely. It turns out, loneliness also acts as a great catalyst to Loosh production, so the creator made a brilliant revision to his formula.
Yeah, that would also make sense. Like, even if you say the loneliness, that's what negative energy is. Like, mostly like generated, even in case of human beings, like that's when negative energy is most generated, because you easily fall into lust and all those negative forms of energy when you're lonely, and it's very hard to stay positive when you're lonely. You're actually going to a 9 to 5, like it's very truly very, very hard. And the other thing is uh, like our entire system itself is orchestrated and made to generate as much of negative energy as possible. Like, that's what the system actually is, and that's what the system is always will be moving forward. Like, the system is against us. There's suffering and pain inside the world, but that's just how the world is.
He split all fourth crop units into new Type 4M units with male and female halves to engender loneliness as they sought to reunite. From experience, the collectors have evolved an entire technology with complementary tools for the harvesting of Loosh from the Type 4M units. The most common have been named love, friendship, family, greed, hate, pain, guilt, disease, pride, ambition, ownership, possession, sacrifice. And on a larger scale, nations, provincialism, wars, famine, religion, machines, freedom, industry, trade, to list a few. Loosh production is higher than ever before.
Yep.
Robert Monroe's interaction with the entity ended abruptly there. If this creation story is true, it appears that the existence of plants, animals, humans, and the entire Earth itself are all simply to feed our creators. If we were ultimately
I don't actually buy that whole that creation, like inside a whole energy. I do actually believe there's hope and salvation in God itself. Like, I do believe that, but I 100% agree. Like, fearful, hateful energy are like, you know, uh, fuel or food to lower astral beings or demons itself. Like, and powers and principalities associated with demons itself. So right, so vice versa. Like, moral and good deeds are also like energy, higher positive thought forms energy to higher astral beings like angels and everything associated with angelic beings. Like, but I do believe like there's ultimate salvation and the triumph of good over evil.
designed not by a loving, benevolent God, as most religions preach, but rather by a race of malevolent super
Yeah, I don't buy that at all.
beings, like the Gnostic archons, this provides unique answers
That's some Gnostic bullshit, like archons and shit. Like, don't buy that shit. But you should actually take away from there something on a loose energy farming. Like, that's what the elites has been doing since like they want when they get into power. Like,
to certain metaphysical questions. For example, why is there so much pain, suffering, disease, and death?
bruh,
Why is Earth plagued with an abundance of various natural disasters? And why does life feed upon life in a destructive cycle of survival? If all of these things produce a kind of nourishment for other entities, then such seemingly negative circumstances only appear that way to us. For the entities that created us, our suffering would likely be no more concerning than that of an ant colony under their feet. Isabella Green said, "Loosh is what human beings produce when in emotional turmoil, fear, guilt, unworthiness, war, conflict, pain, drama, and suffering of all gradations. Guilt, unworthiness, and suffering have been normalized as a part of the human experience, and are promoted from all directions. Just think about the ideas so common in our reality that we no longer notice, such as no pain, no gain, love hurts, not worth it if you didn't suffer for it, etc. The inferiority of the human race to the handlers is promoted in religion."
fuck this Archon bullshit, this agnostic bullshit, bro. There is pain, suffering, fearful energy, all that shit, but there we have hope and salvation, and you know, hope in God itself, and God will preserve you. And that's 100% true. The people think like the problem evil is, you know, takes people away from God a lot of times, but we know there's a spiritual creator. We know like someone's out looking for us. Like there is a spiritual like link to our own body. Like we know there's a conceptual creator who's actually all good and actually preserve us. Like even if things go bad, like, and we can hope in that salvation. And there's ultimately a triumph of good over evil.
Just texts, which makes people look up to them and be eager to do whatever they say. Unworthiness is also the foundation on which most of the present-day industrial complexes stand, and is heavily utilized in marketing. If we zoom out and closely examine our key beliefs on Earth, we will see that these beliefs prepare people for submission to the suggestions of the handlers when we face them after death. The handlers shepherd the souls in and out of their physical bodies, and use the tactics of convincing them to continue physical experiences on Earth while utilizing love, guilt, unworthiness, and suffering. Howdy Mikowski wrote, in Chapter 12 of his book Far Journeys, Robert Monroe presents an out-of-body experience where he met a being of light who provided him with details of our realm. The being described the Earth as a giant experiment for the creator beings to build the perfect loosh harvest system. Loosh being a word Monroe coined to mean a specific type of harvestable energy that the creator beings, demiurge and archons, require. While some
Yeah. This is some agnostic bullshit that entirely, the creation itself. It may be an experiment, but like to, find out, a test for souls, but I don't believe that like in this life is actually a test or anything like that. But I do believe like life is like to attain like theosis or be unified with God, or we are incarnated on earth, have certain experiences to learn, to suffer, and overcome our suffering, to have the experiences. Like that's why we are on earth itself, the physical reality itself. We have the experiences, and only through suffering we actually gain something like courage. Courage cannot, actually happen without suffering. Like any form of virtue cannot be generated or harvested without like any form of suffering. That's why there's problem. Like this is not proper explanation for evil. That's why there is, a lot of suffering in the world. Only virtues can only come from extreme suffering and sacrifice and all those things. And we should understand that. And there's much more into the problem of evil itself. Like I can go much deeper. Maybe that's one other video. Like that's to say about what suffering inside the world actually is. In order to have virtues, like in order to be wise, you have to go through extreme suffering. Wisdom comes from like suffering and also like experiences, learning experiences. So I don't agree with this video about this archons agnostic bullshit about how, but I 100% believe like every time you're in a state of negative energy, like demonic energy, like they're in a constant state of fear, and they want to like harvest energy and fear itself. Yeah, that's the state. And every time when you're lonely, every time you're in an idle state of mind, every time you're engaging in negative fucking shit, like you are generating energy whether you like it or not to this. And this astral being is going to keep you in the state of idleness and lustful energy till and this energy is like a fuel for their lifespans, and that's actually how they move in the metaphysical realm.
Energy is harvested while beings are still alive. The majority is taken at their death. This energy is claimed to be used by the demiurge and archons to extend their own lifespans. I would argue that this phrase, placed into computer terms, means that the energy goes into the computer simulation power grid to keep it running, hence extend the life of the simulation. In order to have this occur, a garden was created by these beings to farm their food source. Our world is one that is dominated by what we call the food chain, a need to eat other things to survive. Monroe presents that the food chain has only been set up to maximize loosh at death. No creature can survive long on Earth, or in this realm, without eating something. A vegetarian may think eating a carrot is not the same as eating a duck, but each are living organisms who are only here to be a part of the Loosh Farm, and their death is the same as any other creature's death from that perspective. If a good God creator was really the only one who set up this place, and if energy was needed to help keep it running, a much better system could have been developed. People try to ignore this problem, but it is critical to see that the only reason a food chain exists is because it comes from the mind of that which is evil.
Yeah, but this guy talks all this shit about evil, but how do you know what it's evil and what's actually good, like bad, without a religious disposition or like without if it's objective sense of morality? Like that's what doesn't even make sense to me. How do you know like what is good and evil? Like this also is question to every atheist. They make some assertions about what's good and evil. What is the epistemic standard for good itself? Like that's what these guys, these gnostic dudes don't give a correct answer to. Like yeah, and also yeah, this is the festival I was talking about. It was believe the Ugong parade where like
your life and your energy by motorbike and on foot to show how. Good evening from
it's some kind of like a demonic festival where they harness energy itself. Like
So you decided people.
wait, they do all this celebration and invite demons over to their co- society, community, whatsoever, and they're for this like a legit demon festival, but they actually celebrate that shit, and they actually like uh after they celebrate it 24 hours, like nobody makes actually a sound. They actually like everyone goes home and nobody makes a sound. It allows like the demon to consume this loose energy whatsoever. Like bruh, that doesn't tell you what the fuck they actually celebrating. Like it's clearly a fucking demon. Like
The one that next to home.
for them
and the next day they're like
like
Landlord, where you stay like hot.
else, I would say.
radio fucking silence, like, and they're trying to like harness like loose energy. Like this festival is famous for that, this form of harvesting of loose energy. Like yeah, it's crazy. And there's like many festivals like this into the entire the eastern world side of the world. Like you can see a lot of demon festivals in our India too. Like there's a lot of these kinds of loose energy harvesting festivals. Like yeah, that's about it.